My name is Zachary Kell, and I'm here to present to you on marijuana, more specifically why we should legalize marijuana. And the main point to legalize marijuana would be to fix systemic racism and help build up devastated communities that we've seen by police forcing in these areas. But before we can talk about some of the main points that we see today, we absolutely have to talk about the history of marijuana and why it is illegal in the first place. During the 1930s, Henry Anslinger, head of the Federal Narcotics Bureau, was explicitly racist. He made a propaganda movement against marijuana in order to stop gas groups and also to fund his programming, which he needed to fund after the end of prohibition of alcohol in the 1930s. Going into this, though, we see that he also in 1951 introduces the Boggs Act, which also makes it to where we have mandatory sentencing laws for first-time offenders. People can be put away for a minimum of 5 years in prison just for simple mere possession of marijuana. However, the laws have changed today regarding that in most states, but in certain states such as Louisiana, zero tolerance for marijuana is still there. If you were caught by any amount, you will be sent to jail or prison, just depending on the amount caught with. In 1971, Nixon declared his war on drugs. However, his aide in Watergate co-conspirator John Ehrlichman later revealed the effort's nefarious motivation in Harper's Magazine. The Nixon's campaign in 1968 and the Nixon White House after that had two enemies, the anti-war left and black people. We knew we couldn't make it illegal to be either against the war or black, but by getting the public to associate the hippies with marijuana and blacks with heroin and then criminalizing both heavily, we could disrupt those communities. We could arrest their leaders, break up their meetings, and vilify them night after night on the evening news. Did we know we were lying about the drug? Of course we did. That was said by John Ehrlichman, Nixon's aide at the time. And then during the 1980s, Ronald Reagan made the 3 strike laws and you're out. If you got 3 strikes from the federal system in any form or way, you could be serving up to 25 years minimum in a maximum prison. But going into and studies show at the time, during the 1940s and even today, that marijuana is not harmful. Well, that's not true, but marijuana is not harmful. However, they disregarded all of these sediments. But according to the Center of Disease Control, alcohol kills 88,000 people a year, while 460,000 die from tobacco. While they claim that 0 overdoses happen from the actual substance itself, deaths do relate to marijuana. This can be attributed. However, the death rates are very low comparably, and I couldn't actually find a figurative number on how many deaths were caused per year, but the biggest number I found was about 30 deaths per year on marijuana, comparably to things such as alcohol or tobacco, which kills a lot of people each year. The benefits of marijuana, even with the medical properties, outweigh the negatives that it has, such as the benefits being treat severe pain and alleviate symptoms of wide-range debilitating medical conditions, including cancer, HIV, AIDS, and other stuff like that. So we can see this. However, we still implement these laws today, and this has introduced a new Jim Crow. And for all of you that don't know what Jim Crow is, during the 60s, the United States had the Supreme Court had an argument against a man named Jim Crow, and they came up with Jim Crow law arguments that stated separate but equal. These later got abolished after the civil rights movements, but we can now see it today within prison systems. Nothing has contributed more to the system mass incarceration of people of color than the United States than the war on drugs. Michelle Alexander explains, and she goes to explain how people are broken down by these harsh enforcement laws, that they can no longer get financial aids or loans or stuff like that to be to be successful, so they are actually second-class citizens, unable to vote or do anything else. And if you don't believe me, we can look at some stats on just how many people are incarcerated in the US and how many are black comparably to white members of society. As of 2016, there are more than 2.2 people in the federal system, according to the Justice Statistics Bureau. And in 2017, 6,590,000 people were arrested for marijuana laws, whereas 49% were black or Latino of the minority groups, only making up 31% of the total US population. So if we're going, there's 70 white members, but you are 4 times more likely to get arrested for marijuana, and there's only 30% blacks, then there is an issue that we can see. However, there is good news, and this is what I came here to talk to you about today, is talking about the Marijuana Justice Act. The Marijuana Justice Act would allow us to decriminalize weed, make it legal for recreational use, and then create an investment pool to where we can create an investment pool where people can use the monies that have been broken down by marijuana and start rebuilding. And he plans on doing some of these things to, let me back up real fast. After he initiated these, his goal is to I can only laugh because my brain is farting. But so his goal is to end this prohibition on marijuana, right? To end these black civil rights. He wants to help fix communities. Corey J. Booker even goes on to explain how he grew up in an affluent part of New Jersey, how where he would see his fellow members of his black descent be taken on and just violated for no reason. And as he went to Yale and Stanford and all that other stuff, people use marijuana and other drugs at the same rate, but there were no sting operations, nothing like that. So he just wants to bring forth this. And one of his supporting arguments for legalizing weed is in 2018, according to the Center for American Progress, 68% of American voters support marijuana legalization and 73% support automatic sealing of marijuana offenses. And then I've already talked about the benefits a little bit. It'll help community members get back jobs that they've lost or reduce that felony on their thing so they can actually apply to jobs and qualify for grants, loans, and all that other stuff. But it's up to all of us together to go support this movement. We need to go online to drugpolicy.org and support the Marijuana Justice Act. Thank you for your time.